Okay. Attempt number 2 on episode 4 with my mom, Lisa Traynor. I don't know how much you heard, but so apparently it wasn't us both being on the same Zoom account. The Wi-Fi here went out.
Oh,
It's
probably
not
from
my
the snow.
fault, so I don't feel as bad now.
Good.
Yeah. Anyways, I got down a deep rabbit hole over this past weekend on Neanderthals. How much did you hear me explain about that?
Me, I heard you talk about their skulls.
Okay, so their skulls. Yeah, they say that their brain was larger than ours. I don't know if that means, I don't know if that necessarily correlates with like the functions they're able to perform or like how intelligent they are. But a lot of times they said animals with larger brains have smaller physical capabilities, and that animals with smaller brains have larger physical. Did I say that right? So the smaller the brain, more physical capability. The larger the brain, the less physical capability. And so that was really strange for them because they carried a lot of muscle mass and their bones were super dense. And like observing their bones, the amount of abuse that they took, like they compared them to people that have done professional bull riding.
Wow.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting. So if they were that well, like let's just say that larger brain did allow them to have more intelligence and higher functioning brain than what we have now. And they carried all that muscle mass. They're the best hunters to ever live. Like what really went wrong with them, I guess, was kind of what I was wondering. Like they say that they kind of fell into like a glacial period, so that like food was very limited and stuff like that. But they had contact with Homo sapiens. Like they actually like interbred with them. So that made me think like, okay, well, if we survived and they didn't, like why, like what kind of happened there? So yeah, then I kept researching like more and more these other human species. I got pretty much super confused because I don't know how any of that works. But I think one of the videos said you kind of got like some different answers. Like one video would say like there were like 13 to 15 other human species, and some would say like as much as 25. So, I mean, who really knows? And a lot of what they say about like that's kind of what got me about a lot of the videos was a lot of what they say is like kind of speculation. It's mostly
Right.
speculation. Yeah. Which I don't really like because a lot of the stuff they're saying, they try and make it sound more like fact. Like, I just feel like there should be like a disclaimer at the bottom, like, this is just spitballing. We have no idea.
Well, and sometimes that's coming based off of what research other than maybe finding bones? Like
I mean, it's pretty much
where
all off bones, but
and so then the makeup of the brain may just because it was larger doesn't necessarily mean it was highly specialized.
right. Have you heard anything too about what did they say? Something about it had to do with the brain and some other organ. But basically, like if you had a high functioning brain, maybe that, gosh, I wish I remember what they said. Like some other organ would suffer, like they were inverse of each other, would suffer.
Oh, yeah, no, I've never heard that theory.
Yeah, that was
interesting. What sources were you researching?
YouTube videos.
YouTube videos. Okay.
Certified YouTube researcher.
Certified YouTube research. I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just really shocking to me that if they were that much, like that's what I didn't understand. They didn't really have like a whole, like some of the other species they got into talking about, like they were vegetarians. So they would literally just sit out in pastures I think it said they had to eat like 16 hours a day. because, I know too, especially from the way I eat, why I don't eat vegetables is because they're so calorically, low in value that it's really no benefit to me. Like I get all my nutrients and stuff in meat. It's just like filler calories basically to me. But anyways, the point of that being they have to stay out there that long just to sustain themselves, that they were that much more vulnerable to predation. So like that clearly makes sense why they're no longer around. Like you can see how we're structured. If it were anything similar to us, we have no natural defense mechanisms. So that would make sense why they would die. But if these people were giant, and it said some of the old food chain models put Neanderthals above like leopards and stuff. Like they were that good at hunting and killing.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that's just, it blew me away that like literal apex predator, but yet they didn't survive. So it almost sounds like it'd have to be like an environmental thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to wrap your head around because that was so long ago.
And not much evidence exists anymore.
Yeah. So
they'd never make it in today's world.
Yeah, they were, that was probably the most interesting group. It was just them, which was kind of cool because, they're hunters and that's really what they were based around. So I can relate a lot to that. Then I started diving like more into it, and I got to think about like the whole species thing because I kept making a big deal about like of all the human species, we're the only ones left. I don't really think that was fair to say because, like, obviously one way a new species is developed is through like interbreeding. Well, that's pretty restricted. Like we don't do that anymore.
Right.
Which is another crazy thing to wrap your head around because clearly there are animals that we are very similar to that could be experimented with. But we just obviously I think it's more of a social type of thing.
Ethical.
Ethical that we don't do that.
Moral, biblical. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons. Yeah.
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 When I first started diving into this, I texted Ashton. I'm like, tell me what you know about species. Cause like I didn't even understand how like evolution or any of that stuff works. Like that was so long ago and that's pretty much the reason like I kind of wanted to do this with you is because you have like a good you have a health sciences degree, right? So you've taken like biology and
all of them,
seen the inside of a dead person. So you have the best base of knowledge for me to spitball these ideas off of. But yeah, so obviously there's that. And then the other thing I didn't really understand is like you have evolution and adaptation. So like, and I tried to research it and it was just too many big words and confusing. But like, say you take a tree or whatever and expose it to an immense amount of sunlight on one side of it and it grows like a curve to it, is that really evolution or is that
adaptation? No, that would be that's an adaptation to something in its environment.
Right. But so let's say now that the trees just start naturally growing with the curve to them. Would that be, because way.
What I learned was typically evolution is a change in something. Like you mentioned, the skull becoming smaller or the brain becoming smaller. There could be an evolutionary reason why. Maybe the makeup of that brain changed literally as the species evolved or changed. Whereas something like that tree growing towards the sunlight is just a response to its environment and it's growing.
Okay, so maybe that wasn't a good example. Maybe here's the thing. I guess the real question is, does evolution have to come from interbreeding or
no?
So it can come from the environment. So if the tree grew some kind of support system on its own to not curve drastically from the sunlight to improve its life, that would be evolution.
I guess in a sense, yeah. I mean, as long as that change continued to evolve over time.
Okay.
It's
So
usually evolutionary changes are for the benefit of survival of that. An adaptation is something like for the immediate response.
okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So for them, this was my other point Ashton kind of mentioned on it too about like the whole, because she based it off like an interbreeding thing about like humans not evolving anymore. But my thought on that was kind of like, if like, I guess that was a hard part for me to understand, was like how a new species is developed, like, because obviously we're probably not going to have the interbreeding thing. But if there were like subtle changes to our environment that we were adapting to, would we change over time? Like, or would it be enough for it to be considered a new species?
Or would we lose characteristics and abilities that we once had that we no longer need, like the large bones? Or
see, that's the part that's hard for me to wrap my head around. Does that make us a new species, or we're just a modified version of the same species?
Probably an adapted version of the same species, depending on like there's scientific classifications of what makes a human. And until we would evolve out of those characteristics, that's when a new species might present itself. But I don't.
That was a thing with the other ones, like really hard to understand where they're coming from by saying we have all these different species. Like, is it from?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means. I've never heard that before. That there's other species of humans.
Yeah. So like there's it's another stupid thing about this is like how the names obviously should be pronounced. They like say it a different way. So like Neanderthal, they call it Neanderthal. Or there's this other one that was very common around the same time that interbred with Homo sapiens. They're called I think Denisovans, but they say like Denisovans or something. But anyways, yeah. And then there's like Homo Erectus, which was like African based. They're like tall, like over 6 feet tall, and could run like super fast. And so the theory on that one is because like the way, like theoretically, because of the way we're structured, since we're a predator that can sweat, we could literally chase down any furred animal that doesn't have the same sweating capabilities, because they would just exhaust themselves out. So that those people, that was the way, their evolution was to basically chase down stuff in the plains where you can literally just outrun it. Like that's not going to work here with trees and stuff in the way, but in the African plains, you could probably see the stuff forever.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's people that know lots more than I do on this topic. Like just.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I just new to it and thought it was interesting.
For sure.
Spitballing on it.
Yeah. And relative to the previous hunters and gatherers and.
Yeah, I mean that was my main interest in it, was like because I'm really, I don't know, I just have this very strong feeling, and I know I've talked with you about this before, that I don't really think the way we're living now is how we were intended to be living. As far as, exposing ourselves to all this screen time and the stuff we're eating, the stuff we're doing with our bodies, like very few people are getting any kind of actual exercise.
Things we do with our thoughts, our mind, our children, I get it. Yeah.
But at the same time, like we live way longer now than those people did. So it's like, it's really hard to weigh which factors are doing what. Like I think they said for the Neanderthals, like 30 years was pretty much their max. But they also had like other things trying to kill them, you know?
And then you run the question, is it modern medicine, that's helping us survive longer, or is it that we have more knowledge and we have a more evolved brain and we take better care of ourselves?
Right.
I don't know. Or maybe it's a little of both. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, me neither.
I mean, even the generational gap between me and you, things are a lot different, just in the way people, what we feed ourselves, what we eat, how we exercise, what we do.
Yeah, I know I've said this to you before. Like literally right now we're and maybe this has something to do with other human species going extinct too. Factors like this, but like every generation over since the baby boomers consistently, like men my age have less testosterone than their fathers, their grandfathers. It's like continuous problem. Like it's not 100%, but like as a whole, it's trending that way. So that maybe some kind of environmental factor just allowed them to not or didn't allow them to reproduce. I don't know. That's why I dove so far into this, because on one side, I'm like, we should be living like these people, but these people didn't make it,
Right.
So it's like, what factors do you extract from each side? Yeah, I don't know. And maybe it's maybe there's some things that we're doing right now and some things that we need to go back to that, that they were
Agreed.
doing.
Agreed. Yes.
Probably the best answer, honestly. I thought it was really cool too. They said like people in Europe and Asia, you could still some people have like 1% to 2% Neanderthal still.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then they broke down like 3 different genetics that Homo sapiens have developed that come from them. So like one of them was something to do with like, I don't know if it's the way we breathe or something to do with oxygen basically. But they're like, I don't know if you've ever seen their skull, like their nose is like flat basically. And they say there's like basically like a radiator for like regulating the air coming in, because more than likely it was like a lot colder. Yeah. So I don't know. There's all like so many different components of this that just blew me away.
And again, you go back to also being studied and speculated on by somebody who's just looking at remnants of what existed.
Right.
That's the hard part too. Solid facts of,
yeah.
They didn't make a recording like we're doing now. Like there was nothing to
think about if some kind of catastrophic event happened, like there wouldn't be anything left of this recording anyways.
Right.
Yeah, that's the
equivalent of scratching it on the cave, right?
So I guess realistically they could have been like really shitty hunters and they're just saying that's something I didn't really consider either, I guess.
Well, and you think about like when you were talking about extinction of them, was it like disease with amongst what they were hunting? Like could there have been some? I mean, there could have been some animal species we don't know about that made them all sick.
Yeah.
Like who knows?
Or yeah, some of like, because like they were mostly like tribal based. A lot of those early, or not early, but extinct human species that like they still were talking about like rituals and stuff like that. So like when like a comrade would die, they'd bust their brain open with a rock and eat their brains. I got so sick when I watched that.
Like,
I had no appetite, because the only brains I've ever seen in my life were like deer brains when we do like the European mounts and stuff. It's disgusting looking. The stuff they had on TV looked exact like, you weren't like, oh yeah, it's just fake movie brain. No, they look like real freaking brain.
Yeah.
Gross. Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
Which lends itself to think that maybe the brain isn't as advanced. So I don't know if you read this, but your brain develops like brainstem forward, right? So all of your, what we consider higher level functions are in the front of your brain. Yeah, like impulse control, that kind of stuff, those higher functions. Well, the things for survival are down at your brainstem moving forward. Well, it just makes you wonder if then, what was that law? Was it just a large skull? Did it really have a full brain even in it? And then obviously it wasn't highly specialized and evolved in that.
Yeah, I guess in that case, like the shape of it could even be different too.
Like I'm sure.
All survival shape.
Yeah.
Because your brain is like smaller in the front, right?
Kind of, yeah. Like it comes forward.
Right.
Like the lobes come forward, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that perhaps the, like what we call the state centers and that stuff moving forward, like survival was more pronounced. I don't know. Now you kind of got me curious. I didn't know what we were talking about, so I didn't look anything up, but now I got to look up at least a picture.
Yeah. I might actually be able to, I don't know if you'll be able to see it.
Like share your screen or something.
Yeah, pull it up on here. Geez, I'm so terrible with computers. I don't know if this is going to be the move. There we go. Can you see or no?
I see you holding a fish.
Okay, good.
So we're getting there.
Okay, what do you want to see?
Their skull.
Whose skull? The Neanderthal?
Like the Neanderthal. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to butcher the spelling.
There you go.
Yeah, so there's a comparison.
Oh, yeah. So
see their nose too, though? It's giant.
Yeah.
Everything about them is just bigger. And so, like, I don't know, it's hard to dismiss the fact that they would have been better hunters because you think about, like me, I played sports growing up my whole life. I know what an athlete looks like. Like, the bigger and more muscle you can carry, like, generally you're going to be a better athlete. I don't know. Maybe they were slow as shit and not very agile. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, let me.
Interesting. Yeah, that skull is long, isn't it? And there's not much like frontal lobe development in that skull. You see how, like, see where it's red and blue, the one below the blue one kind of has this like ridge, almost like the frontal cortex isn't developed. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if they have like a body skeletal on them.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so you can just see, like, look at the leg bones, like how much thicker they are. Yeah. But
and the height comes mostly from the legs, doesn't it? Like the pelvis looks about the same, the spinal cord or the spinal column looks about the same, but the legs are truly
shape though.
And I wonder, yeah, you're right. I wonder too if that had anything to do with like this height difference, what it had, what its purpose was. True, like reaching thing. I don't know. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, something I never spent too much time pondering. What kind of fish is that?
A muskie.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, only one I've ever caught. They call it the fish of 10,000 cats.
Oh, wow.
They're hard to catch. I'm trying to figure out how to get you back on here now. I'm gonna.
Oh.
I was gonna see how terrible I am with computers. There we go. It's so hard to find. Okay. I don't know that I have too much more.
Okay.
Do you have any insight?
Not anything additional, I don't think.
Okay. Yeah, the only other thing I had was optimal living, but I think we just kind of discussed that was like a combination of the two.
I guess no one really knows.
No, that's messed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I was the first bucket female guest, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was
First
fun.
female guest, first screen sharing attempt.
It's okay. We learn.
Yep. It's okay.
All righty.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
See you.